Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into something really profound, one of the quietest, most invisible forms of human suffering out there. It's wild because it's an experience that leaves absolutely no physical scars, it trips no alarms, and yet it is quietly becoming one of the most dangerous emotional epidemics of the 21st century. We're going to pull back the curtain on the psychology of loneliness. We'll discover exactly why it is entirely possible, and honestly, increasingly common, to feel utterly and completely alone, even when you're living in a world that has literally never been more connected. To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to picture a scene. Imagine a guy named Arav. He's standing in a room, and this room is just packed, absolutely full of people. The music is bumping, echoing through the walls, laughter is bouncing from corner to corner. There's this relentless, overwhelming illusion of life and connection happening all around him. Conversations are overlapping everywhere, right? Just blending into this loud, constant hum. Phones are flashing, people are capturing memories and smiling. And Arav? Well, he's playing his part perfectly. He smiles whenever someone looks his way, he nods along during conversations, he even laughs right on cue when everyone else laughs. He is physically present, he's surrounded by bodies and voices, and yet, he feels completely, entirely invisible. Because inside his mind, there's only silence. And let me tell you, it's not a peaceful silence. It is a heavy, suffocating, really dangerous kind of quiet. It's that specific type of silence that slowly and methodically convinces a person that literally nobody in that loud room, or in the entire world for that matter, actually understands them.
Section 1. Invisible in a crowd.
Section 2. The brain on loneliness. So to really grasp why this happens, we have to look past the surface level of our emotions and look directly at the brain. A lot of us just dismiss loneliness, right? We treat it as just a feeling, a temporary sadness that'll eventually pass. But modern neuroscience, it tells a much darker, much more clinical story. You see, human neurology hasn't actually changed all that much since our tribal days, thousands of years ago. Back then, being isolated from your tribe didn't just mean you were sad. It usually meant you were going to die. Because of this evolutionary hardwiring, your brain literally treats prolonged social disconnection as a strict survival threat. When you feel emotionally isolated for a long time, your nervous system actually rings a biological alarm bell, reacting exactly the same way it would to physical pain or mortal danger. And when the brain believes it's in mortal peril, it goes into full defensive mode. This is exactly why lonely people don't just feel a bit down. They experience this intense cascade of psychological symptoms. We're talking severe overthinking, crippling anxiety, emotional numbness, disrupted sleep, plummeting self-worth, and a paralyzing fear of rejection, and eventually depression. The lonely mind actually starts feeding on itself. It starts whispering things like, maybe nobody cares about me, or maybe I'm just not important. Maybe I'm meant to be alone. What starts out as a fleeting feeling of isolation slowly transforms into this permanent, deeply painful identity. Which brings us to Section 3, the social threat cycle. Now, once that defensive identity really takes root, profound loneliness actually begins to warp how a person perceives the world around them. Because the brain is locked in survival mode, it develops what's known as social threat perception. It becomes incredibly hyper-alert to emotional pain, and it starts misinterpreting completely normal human behavior. Say a friend replies late to a text. The lonely brain doesn't think, oh, they're probably just busy. No, it feels utterly ignored. If someone cancels plans, it's immediately processed as this deep, personal rejection. If someone sounds even slightly cold in their tone, the lonely mind assumes hatred. The brain is basically creating a false, highly threatening reality. And this creates a really tragic, glitching cycle. Step 1, loneliness increases your insecurity. Step 2, that heightened insecurity causes you to either lash out or pull away, which ironically damages your relationships. And step 3, those damaged relationships create even more loneliness. Round and round it goes. And eventually, people who are trapped in this cycle, they just stop trying. And it's not because they hate other people. It's because they're just exhausted. They fear the disappointment of trying to connect and failing, so they isolate themselves simply as a way to survive. Section 4, the roots of isolation. But where does this vulnerability actually begin? Well, if we rewind time, psychology reveals a deeply painful, often completely unspoken connection here. This emotional timeline forms the literal blueprint of isolation. You see, a lot of adults who struggle with profound loneliness today actually grew up in environments where their emotions were ignored, where vulnerability was punished, or where love just felt highly conditional.
Moving into adolescence, they learn to survive by bearing their true feelings. And by adulthood, they've become absolute masters at pretending. They look strong, they look independent, maybe even emotionless. But deep down, they're simply terrified of being abandoned all over again. They don't isolate because they like it. They isolate because they learned really early on that opening up is a dangerous game. Moving on to section 5, solitude versus loneliness.
We absolutely have to understand the vast difference between being alone and feeling alone. Solitude heals, but loneliness destroys. Solitude is the active choice to be alone peacefully, to gain clarity. Loneliness, on the flip side, creates a crushing emptiness because it's the feeling of being emotionally abandoned, even when you're surrounded by a crowd. This perfectly explains why one person can sit happily by themselves just reading a book for hours, while another person feels entirely broken and panicked after just 5 minutes without a distraction. Loneliness is never about physical distance. It is 100% about emotional disconnection.
Section 6, the illusion of connection.
We are, without a doubt, the most technologically connected generation in human history. Yet, statistically speaking, we are more emotionally starved than ever before. Why is that? Well, our modern world offers the illusion of connection without demanding any actual emotional intimacy. Humans were biologically designed to need eye contact, physical touch, true presence, and emotional vulnerability. But our modern reality, it's reduced our relationships to likes, views, typing indicators, and these quick, short replies. People post wide, smiling photos for the whole world to see while silently just falling apart inside. You can literally receive thousands of likes on a post and still cry alone at night, because digital attention is not a substitute for real connection, and metric validation is definitely not the same thing as love.
Finally, section 7, finding emotional safety.
So, how do we actually break this cycle? Let's go back to Arav. Sitting alone in the quiet, stepping away from all that digital illusion, Arav asks himself one terrifying, incredibly heavy question. When was the last time I was emotionally honest with someone? And as he really searches his memory, he realizes he can't even remember. For years, he's worn this mask of being strong, this mask of not caring. But the truth is, humans just cannot emotionally survive behind masks forever. Eventually, the oxygen runs out.
That night, Arav opens a message to an old friend and types out a single, incredibly simple sentence. I don't think I've been okay for a long time. It was the first truly honest sentence he had spoken in years. And in that terrifying moment of vulnerability, he found way more healing than in thousands of fake surface-level interactions. Because true, real connection only begins the exact moment that pretending ends. Psychologists emphasize this constantly. The cure for this epidemic of loneliness isn't about gaining popularity or hoarding endless, shallow interactions. The cure is emotional safety. Humans only heal when they feel truly heard, fully understood, unconditionally accepted, and emotionally safe. And to get there, you've got to find the courage to tell the truth about how you actually feel. Sure, not everyone's going to understand you, and honestly, that's okay. But if you take the mask off, the right people finally can.
This is the silent battle that's happening inside millions of minds every single day. There's no blood, there are no visible scars, no dramatic signs of trauma. It's just people walking through crowded rooms, hoping to be found. Because at their absolute core, many lonely people don't want attention. They aren't looking for a spotlight. They simply want someone who truly sees them for who they are.
You can surround yourself with noise, with massive crowds, with a million digital connections, but none of it will change our fundamental biology. We are a tribal species. The human heart was just never designed to survive completely alone. So as you look at the crowded rooms in your own life, who might be silently waiting for you to see past their mask and simply ask if they are okay?